for F1. I've seen this movie just in theaters. I saw the film 4 times. This movie is everything, and it is the highest grossing sports film of all time with $628 million worldwide. Let's hear it for F1, everybody. Big congrats to this amazing cast, these amazing filmmakers, and I'm so honored to moderate tonight's conversation. This is a great panel. This is going to be so fascinating. Please welcome to the stage visual effects supervisor Ryan Tudhope. Please welcome re-recording mixer Gary Rizzo. Please give it up for composer Hans Zimmer. Let a draw crowd. Please welcome Cinematographer Claudio Miranda. Please welcome producer Jeremy Kleiner. Please welcome producer Dede Gardner. Please give it up. I mean, like in the world of filmmakers, there's this guy and there's everybody else. Please welcome legendary producer Jerry Bruckheimer. Ladies and gentlemen, boy, to follow up a movie with like Top Gun Maverick with a movie like F1, it can only fall to writer, producer, director Joseph Kosinski. Well, let's talk about following up that 2022 movie that made $1.5 billion worldwide, nominated for 6 Oscars, including Best Picture. So, Joe, what was it like? What excited you the most about going from Top Gun Maverick to F1?
Well, I never thought I'd see anything quite as cool as standing on the deck of an aircraft carrier between 2 F-18s and watch them both catapult off simultaneously. But when Lewis Hamilton, who is our producing partner on this film, invited me to the Austin Grand Prix in, it was October of 21, when I walked into that garage and watched a group of mechanics put a car together in front of me, and then Lewis climbed inside that machine and rocketed out and set a lap record. I said, I have to tell a story in this world. This is just unbelievable. I hadn't seen anything like it. So that was the moment it kind of started 4 years ago now. And, here we are. You've seen it 4 times.
4 times,
yeah.
Just in theaters.
Yeah.
Okay, Jerry Bruckheimer, for you to re-team with Joseph Kosinski here, what were the new challenges in going from Maverick to F1? Not just, for your collaboration, but in all your years producing them. And I literally just 6 months ago rewatched American Gigolo. Okay, what were the new challenges for you as a producer going into F1?
It's always the same. You have to have a great script, and that's the key. And with Dede, Jeremy, Joe, and Brad, and Aaron Kruger, we worked tirelessly to make this the best possible screenplay that Joe could get on the floor and make it great. That's the biggest challenge. The second biggest challenge is you can't make a movie about F1 without F1. So we had to get the 10 teams, the organization of F1, to get behind this movie. And any organization is frightened when a movie company comes to them because they have a huge fan base, but they don't want to hurt their fan base. They want to make sure that the movie represents their sport in the right way. And the thing that Lewis Hamilton, who's one of our producers, and Joe and all of us on this stage wanted to make the most authentic racing movie ever made. And according to Lewis, I think we've accomplished that.
All right, so, when I look back at Plan B and I look at the Oscar-winning films like 12 Years a Slave and Moonlight, and then I look at a film like F1, this is a this is the motherlode here when it comes to, you know, really taking on and producing extravaganza like it's never done. So can you talk about those challenges for Plan B and specifically your collaboration? Not only is Brad Pitt, you know, in the film, he's also a producer on the film. So tell us how that collaboration worked.
It was really seamless. First of all, because of how welcoming these guys, everyone was to us, and we dabbled in bigness with World War Z, but nothing like this. We knew Brad was a gearhead and loved to race and was sort of vibrating to do this. Honestly, to stand next to Jerry and just watch and learn, and Joe and everyone, it was a thrill. It also got me a lot of street cred with my kids. and now they're F1 fanatics, and that's what we do. It was a joy, honestly. And then we knew how to sort of, having been with Brad for over 20 years, like follow what we knew were his instincts in terms of story and script and casting. And I think it was really, it was a beautiful collaboration. It was really fun.
Also, you know, Jeremy, the immersion that Brad and Damson had to really take in terms of like learning how to drive and, you know, really trying to make it as authentic as possible here.
Yeah, just to crib off what you were saying, I mean, I think we as a company have, in our minds at least, we had done some things that were difficult, but I don't think I think the degree of difficulty of this film was, you know, beyond almost like comprehension. I think every single person on this stage had like a very, very difficult job. And I think that there were a series of technical challenges and logistical challenges that are almost like mind-boggling to consider. And I feel like it's something that I hope people can appreciate, because the film seems, it's so confidently made by Joe and the team. But like everything from the training and Brad and Damson getting that down. But I often think about, you know, to Jerry's point, like synchronizing the cooperation of F1 so that like the, you know, the grid walk that we were able to do, you know, was almost like doing live theater because we had, you know, a limited amount of time from F1 to get it all done or whatever. So at every level, there was just this unbelievable kind of challenges that people really stepped up to overcome.
And you know, you had to do a lot of collaboration with F1. You know, Joe, when it came to the authenticity, to the accuracy of it all, while still making sure, you know, we're telling a really compelling underdog human story here, a story of vindication and redemption. You know, how did you make sure that once you get past all the tech of it all, you know, this is really all just about a human story?
Yeah, well, it all starts with the script, and we spent the first year just hammering on the script with Aaron Kruger and Brad and Jerry and Jeremy and Dede and I. You know, Lewis Hamilton was a huge part of it, and you know, when we talk about Lewis being our partner on this, it's not just as a technical advisor. You know, what Lewis is a 7-time world champion. He's won more races than any other driver in history, and really gave us insight into what makes these guys tick, what drives them, what they're searching for, and in fact, you know, that really important scene on the balcony where Sonny tells Kate about what he's chasing, a lot of that came straight from Lewis. And you know, we were all in the room when Lewis told that feeling that he gets every once in a while. It's very rare, and we loved it so much, and it was so beautiful. It really gave us insight into the character and you know, created that scene. So his involvement in the movie and his participation can't be understated.
So, Claudia, you know, we've had a couple conversations a few years ago about all the innovations you did to capture the realism of Maverick. Now you're talking about a whole new can of worms, so to speak, when it comes to the innovations that you took on to capture the realism of making a racing movie like no other. Talk about the setup, how many cameras you had in the cars, and sort of the experimentation you did, you know, collaborating with Joe and the producing team here, and the sound team, till you got it right.
I mean, what's great about, you know, Joe and our collaboration together, Joe usually has me, you know, on really early to kind of solve these problems and get people kind of ramped up, and Sony and Apple and everyone kind of work together to build cameras that were not really possible to shoot with before. Because when I showed Mercedes the cameras that we had, and no one can see where they're going or drive, and that was kind of a critical issue. So we wanted to be able to kind of, and still we got a camera small, but still there was still issues even with the camera we built that took 6 months of Sony to build and develop, and basically my idea was like a sensor on a stick and make it as small and trim down as much as we possible. But even that, like this little camera that we sort of decided was still too small, and then I put a little riser and they could see through this little half-inch gap that gave the actors, you know, the ability to kind of see the curve where they have to brake. And that's also, all these things are like super critical, but all this, you know, just sort of try to lessen the stuff in front of them. But yeah, I mean, we did have a plan B. I'm so glad that didn't work because I got sick on that one. But the other stuff really was just, you know, what I love about working with this team and Joe, particularly, is like, he gives me enough time and prep to kind of get all these ideas out there. Because if he would have come to me, hey, in 2 months, let's go do this movie, none of this would have been possible.
All right, so, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, again, Hans Zimmer, yes. All right, so, this is really funny. So, you know, I'm prepping for tonight's conversation, and I'm like, oh, let me just check out what, you know, Hans Zimmer's working on next. And I see his credits, it says, as a composer, 270 credits. I went, but Hans, what was it about F1? What informed your approach to composing the score, and what was it about it that made you feel like a teenager again?
Well, actually, it was finally getting it right, because I think the first race car movie I ever did was with Jerry. We did Days of Thunder together, and then a bit further on down the road, I did a movie called Rush, you know. And, these were all learning curves. So by the time I came to this one, plus I knew Gary was going to have my back. You know, I can't do anything without him. So, you know, no, I'm not too kind. I'm being realistic. So I always wanted to figure out how to make an audience feel what you feel when you're out there, you know, in the real world, and you really see it. You really are at a race. Because Gary and I were talking about it a little bit earlier. There's a limit of how far technology can make us feel it, as opposed to actually being out there and smelling, you know, the gas and everything. And all I try to do, sort of emotionally, just give it a little bit of extra.
There's a disco track in this score that I'm not really used to hearing from your previous scores. Was that new for you?
It sort of is always there. It's just this time I sort of let it unleash itself.
All right, so the first time I saw the film, I saw it in IMAX. And I mean, look, IMAX is always the way to go. And it's like, okay, I'm happy. Second time I saw the film, I saw it in Dolby Atmos. And I went, whoa, that just changed everything. You know, when it comes to making a film about racing, especially one that pushes the boundaries like this, why is it not just about making it louder, making it right to serve the story and to celebrate the sport?
Yeah, earlier you said all the key words: authenticity, emotion, and story. Those three things play a part in every part of the crafts, in every department. We're thinking about all that in terms of authenticity. You know, we got the thumbprint, the voices of Formula One with Crufty and Brundle, and that solidified the authenticity of this film in terms of the audience identifying what Formula One actually is. If you at all watch Formula One, you hear those voices, you know what's going on. You know exactly what you're watching, and the enthusiasm that they bring to it is so unique. We can talk about recording cars, but we had incredible supervision / scrutiny from our executive producer, Lewis Hamilton, because he knows the sound of these cars and the sound of each track and the curve of each track, and he could identify on that shot, I know that's turn 3, and that's not what turn 3 sounds like. Well, it sounds an awful lot like turn 5, but it's not turn 5. You know, and that was some great, an incredible degree of authenticity that was brought to it. Emotionally, we had incredible music. You know, this movie starts with Led Zeppelin and ends with Ed Sheeran and John Mayer and a whole lot of Hans Zimmer in between, you know? Like, there's some glorious, glorious emotional music to carry the story all the way through, with some tremendous performances by our cast, captured by Gareth Johns. I gotta give Gareth some props for capturing production sound. He got vehicles as well as dialogue. He was capturing headset communications as well as dramatic performances. It was just fantastic.
Speaking of the authenticity here, Ryan, so, you know, you're talking about a film that, you know, okay, well, there's definitely going to be a lot of practical effects, but there are also going to be a lot of digital visual effects as well. So how did you strike the balance between the practical and the digital?
Yeah, well, our goal with the visual effects was never to impress the audience, but to do everything we could to make sure that they weren't thinking about it at all, and that they could focus on the story and the characters and what they're going through, and to really just be immersed and feel like you're on the track. So it really starts with protecting that authenticity that everyone's talking about, and that the being blessed with all that access we had to F1 and our cast who's training to be on the tracks and going those incredible speeds with the camera gear that Claudio is inventing. Our job in visual effects is really protecting all that authenticity, figuring out how to capture things correctly the first time so that the work we're doing is really seamless when we add it, rather than being something we're trying to fix.
So, listen, like I said, this film, there's never been a film like this, especially in the racing world. But, you know, you've all worked so well with each other on previous films. You know, you've all had just so much success individually in all the films that you worked on. But I just feel like because there is a lot going on in F1 where you're doing something that's never been done. There must have been a lot of experimentation and a lot of collaboration, a lot of overlap. So I would love to hear about what those conversations were like when it really came down to like doing something you've never done and making sure that you got it really right. Start with you, Joe.
Well, yeah, the exciting thing about this film was we were going to shoot it during the real races. So take everything we all know about filmmaking and where you can control, you know, the time of day and the lighting and how much time you spend on every scene and how many takes you do, throw that out the window. And now we're on the F1 schedule. So, you know, the scene where, the first scene at Silverstone, you know, between Sonny and Joshua standing in the national anthem next to Max Verstappen, to the scene where they go meet Banning for the first time near the Apex car, I had 17 minutes in real time to shoot 3 scenes, actually 4. So we rehearsed that sequence for 2 weeks with a stopwatch in front of the FIA to prove to them that we could do all this without screwing up the race. So you're talking about actors who are used to having, you know, 10, 15, 20 takes to get it right. Now, you know, I'm telling Brad and Javier, we're gonna have probably 2, maybe 3 takes. So whatever you guys do is gonna be in the movie, because we're not coming back. And so it is more like live theater, but what I found was everybody rose to the occasion. The actors, the crew, everybody, knowing that we were under that extreme time pressure and doing it in front of 140,000 people. It was the highest pressure situation I've ever been involved in, but it really brought out an energy that I think you feel on screen that we couldn't have gotten any other way.
How about for you, Jerry? How did that energy just bring out the best in not just the crew, but just, you know, even you as a producer, you know, that's a pretty high wire act to have to get all that in just a short period of time during an actual F1 race.
Well, we were part of the F1 season, basically, actually 2 seasons, because we started our movie, we shot for 4 days, and then we had an actor strike, we had a writer strike. So Joe went around and shot second unit around the world, came back the next year and brought the actors in. They were available finally, so that was good. So we shot all our actors the next season, but we were following these races. So in other words, we built 6 cars. Mercedes designed the car with Joe. It was an F1 body over an F2 engine. The reason we use an F1 engine is because it takes 35 people to start it. So it takes two on an F2 car engine to start it. So we had to truck these cars around the world. We built a paddock that our garage that we had to fold up and pack and take it around the world. And and our sound team had to go to every race and record all the cars. As he was saying earlier, every turn is different. In one turn you're in third gear, the other turn you're in fourth gear, and Lewis can hear all this. So all these things had to be built into the movie to make it the exciting thing that you just watched. And how many people are seeing it for the first time? Raise hands. Fantastic. Thank you.
Hold on to your butts, folks.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. But it's really about the emotion. It's about the fact that you feel something. You get hooked into Brad's character. You go through the season with him. You see his sadness and his joy and all the wonderful things that we love to bring to audiences into theaters and to fill theaters. That's what it's about. And that's the joy we had in making this movie, that we communicated to an audience something that we felt was really special, and so did they. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, let's get the Jeremy, when it comes to making a film like this, with all the prep, with all the rehearsal that y'all did, especially for, the scenes during the race where you only had, 17 minutes or so, what were some of the other hurdles that you both had to face as producers, that you never had to deal with on other films?
I think normally movies move in and they're in charge. They're sort of the biggest organism on the street. That was not the case here. So the pressure I felt, and I think, thank God Joe was in charge, was like, oh, we cannot mess this up. Like, this is so much bigger than a movie. And you have, Monza happens when Monza happens. That's it. That's the weekend. And you can't, there's over 100,000 people watching, and all the racers are getting ready to race, and they don't really care about this movie. Like, they care, they were loving, but they also have to go race. So you just felt like, oh, okay, the whole power dynamic just is different than it's ever been. And I felt such respect for them, and I thought, they're being so generous, we really have to get every minute right. Like, you can't, there's no margin for error, which is harrowing.
Go ahead, please. Yeah.
What you were asking about sort of collaborations, and I was just reflecting on, I think that the technical challenges were so extreme in a way that not letting them get in the way of the human emotional needs of the film is a kind of a really high bar. And I often think about the ending of the film, or not the ending maybe, but let's say an emotional catharsis for Brad's character, which, since people haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil, but I feel like something quite unconventional is attempted, that I think is a really beautiful mix of the emotional and the technical, and I think was an example of some amazing instincts that Joe and Brad and everybody had, to kind of trust one another, that this kind of beautiful symphony orchestra of everybody here was going to kind of pull it off. And hopefully we did.
And what you're going to see is Brad and Damson are actually driving these cars. It's not like there's CGI and they're on a stage and it's blue screen. It's not. They're in the car, they're driving the cars. They trained for 4 months to be able to get in these cars. The seat is molded to their body. An F2 driver takes a month to figure out how to drive an F1 car. That's how difficult it is. So the expertise and then they have to act. So on top of, going into a turn at 200 miles an hour and breaking down to 50, and then Joe's yelling at him, stop smiling.
I had, it was more like a live sporting event. I had between 8 and 12 monitors in front of me with a feed from all the cameras. Claudio had a big monitor. Sometimes Claudio and I were running the panning of the cameras, which you'll see in the film when the camera moves. We were actually controlling that from master control, but then I had a headset on that allowed me to communicate with the drivers and with Brad. So yeah, Jerry's right, at Spa, which is one of the most beautiful tracks in the world, there's this famous turn called Eau Rouge where you go, it's very, very dangerous. It's also the most deadly, but it's a blind crest so that when you go over it, you actually go weightless in the car. You get negative G's, you float in the seat and the car gets pressed down. And it's a very intense scene, but the first 3 or 4 times Brad went through it, he was smiling. He was having so much fun. So yeah, so I had to remind him what scene we were doing. Yeah, it was great.
So, Claudia, I would love to hear about your collaboration with visual effects, because the cinematography, there's got to be a lot of overlap between what you were doing and what Ryan was doing. So, how did that collaboration work? Again, until you felt like you were happy with what you were getting.
I mean, the way Ryan, we work together, and Joe and I, we all kind of collaborate, is we really want this, get it in camera as much as possible. Feel the G's, feel the steering, and seeing Brad look at us, can you see that turn through the camera? There's a little bit of panic, but there's also a little bit of emotion in that. And you feel that versus being on a synthetic screen, and then Ryan have to do a lot more work to get it. I mean, Ryan you're adding, reskidding other cars that we're using. We had 6 of our cars, they're racing around each other's, and they're, one time one's a Mercedes, but it's playing, we're using those cars. And so Ryan is reskidding those cars. So we're just, I'm just trying to keep it as authentic as possible, and that's his leverage.
Yeah, I mean, we all agree that like you said, Claudio, trying to get something in camera is so valuable because there's this sort of organic quality to a real camera operator trying to follow a real thing. Even if we're going to change what those things are in visual effects later, you have something foundational to the shot that just people will believe. And when you sort of skip that step, that's when things start to go awry. People can start calling out, oh, that looks like CGI, that looks like CGI. So having that core philosophy, in the case of F1, we had, as Jerry said, we had 6 cars that we built for our picture vehicles. And there were certain situations where they were worried about damaging those cars if we had to spin them off into gravel, or there were certain things, because obviously they're highly valuable and important to getting the movie done. And so rather than sort of jump to a visual effects only approach, we employed an F3 car, which is a sort of a little bit smaller, but it still is something that's an incredibly capable vehicle that our stunt drivers could drive, and they could send that more safely into certain situations, and then we would reskin it to look like our Apex GP car. But we're still out there, we're still capturing something for real, and we're getting all the amazing stuff that comes from that.
So when you get all this together, and then you go into Hans' studio and you say, we want to be able to hear the music and the dialogue, but you have this roar of these cars. So he had the toughest job. How do you have music come through these enormous, loud engines? So Hans, why don't you? He went back to his youth, is basically.
Gary and my history, so we've done an enormous amount. Good point. I'm here for you. You see? Question answered. No, we've done quite a few noisy movies together. We've done a lot of Chris Nolan movies together. So that sort of, I felt I was going to be in good hands. Plus, having done some racing movies in the past, I was very cautious at figuring out what my frequency bandwidth would be, and work within that, and leave the rest of the noise to the things that make more noise than I could ever make.
Hans is being very modest. What Hans can do that almost no other composer can do is he can write a melody that sticks in your head and you can't get it out. And what you're going to hear tonight is right at the top of the movie, after Led Zeppelin, is you're going to hear the melody that Hans wrote for this movie. And you're going to hear it not only then, but you're going to hear it throughout the movie, woven in different tracks. You're going to hear it in a pop song sung by Doja Cat. But that's what Hans can do that, and Jerry said this from the beginning to me when we were talking about, who's going to be the composer for this, is that, as Jerry would say, Hans can write a tune. And that is, I think, his superpower and why he is who he is. And that is just something that not everyone can do. He's very special in that sense.
I'm blushing.
Thank you. Gary, I want to hear.
But you know, the other part of this whole thing is, you know, it's like it is working with these people, you know, and it's not easy writing a tune. It's not easy competing with a race car and trying to write a tune, etc. But at the end of the day, you know, I look around my room and I see Joe and I see Jerry and other people, you know, and their faith somehow, as misplaced as it seems some of the time, it gets me there. So, you know, that really is it. You know, it's like, you know, you don't want to let anybody down.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, because this is a movie, again, not just a racing movie, but it's just a movie like no other. So, like, what was the biggest takeaway for each of you after working on F1, starting with you? Right.
Oh my gosh, the biggest takeaway. I mean, I think it just, like Jerry said, it all starts with the script and, you know, Joe's vision of what he wanted this movie to be was so clear from the very beginning, and that was a guiding star for all of us to be able to follow and to just know and, you know what we needed to do to make the film that he wanted to make. And it was just such a blessing to have all the support of F1, especially for what we do, being able to capture all the things we needed to bring back to the teams that were doing the visual effects. It's a big team sport, team effort, what we all do. And F1 was sort of a great movie that demonstrated that.
How about you, Gary?
I fell in love with movies because of Jerry Bruckheimer and Hans Zimmer, very honestly. So the fact that I got to work with these guys on this movie, and this is the fourth film I've mixed for Joe, and it's always a treat. I will do everything in my power to drop everything to work for Joe if there's an opportunity to work for Joe. But you put all that together, and the entire sound crew that we had, Al Nelson, Juan Peralta, and Gwen Whittle, for me, it's the people, it's the crew, it's the village. It's being able to work in this village is such an honor.
Actually, I feel a little bit the same way. I mean, I don't even know how many movies we've made together, Jerry. But then, you know, 12 Years a Slave and F1, there is a difference between those two movies, but still, we managed to do them, you know. So it's that thing that when you are in the company of these people, when they walk into your room, they're going to go and challenge you with something fabulous, and that's what makes life worth living, you know. Do you want to do a race car movie? Yes.
Claudio, how about for you?
I mean, we've done all movies together, right, Joe? 6. And what I love is that sometimes we kind of talk about a little bit hints of a job coming up in the future, and you know, kind of get your gears kind of turning. And what I do love about the job that we do, it's a collaboration with myself and Mercedes, and myself and F1, and myself and, you know, and Joe, and we're trying to solve these problems. And it's not just in my normal, like, tight little film world. It's not just my ACs and grips. It's you know, it's just, you know, we're talking to Sony in Japan, we're talking to London. It's just a collaboration from everyone coming together, and Panavision building the mounts, and everyone just building these parts, and with this like goal purpose of going 200 miles an hour, and feeling like this is not, it doesn't feel synthetic. It feels, there's something about it that I feel feels, when you're getting jostled in the car, it's not just me, you know, a guy on a piece of stick. It's real sensations, and the cameras are like not really isolated that much, and you get a really sensation of the road. The rumble strips jar the cameras. The road is tangible. I think that's what this movie feels when you're driving the car. I think you're going to feel like you're immersed in this journey, and when I look at the movie, I feel like, you know, we did it. You know, we did Plan A. You know.
All right, Jeremy and Dede.
I think when you're surrounded by the best of the best in every department, and everyone's sort of pointing and rowing towards the same destination, I was really struck that even within really precise margins, genuine art can be made, and genuine acting can happen, and direction, and the beautiful spontaneity that happens inside of movies being made, it can still happen there when everyone is excellent.
Jeremy?
I think
She said it? All right, Jeremy, how about you? Biggest takeaway for you?
That we entertain audiences. That's why we do this. We do this to show what Hollywood and what our great people in this business can do. And it goes around the world. This is an original movie. It's the highest grossing sports movie ever. It's Brad Pitt's biggest movie. These are all things that this team pulled off together for audiences, and that's fills the theaters. We want to keep the theaters going. That's what we do. We love
Take us out, Joe.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a version of what everyone said. When you have the right group of people, and you get the right group of people together, you really can accomplish anything. And I think that's what we attempted to do on this film. And I'm excited for everyone here who hasn't seen it yet to see it. So enjoy the show.